mantranam jivabhuta tulya smrita shakti rupaya. Tatahina valarohe nishvalaha sharda bravat. Om shantihi shantihi shantihi. She, whom the seers know and remember as the imperishable Shakti, is the meaning in all the sutras and the slokas of the revealed scriptures. Without her, O fair one, all the tattvas would be as useful as clouds with no rain. She is the perfect I consciousness, existing and inherent in all the multitude of words, and the essence of all the mantras, whose being is the highest non-duality. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Vedanta Siddhanta Nirukti Resha Brahmaiva Jivaham Sakalam Jagatcha Akanda Rupa Stitir Eva Moksho Brahmadvitiye Shrutaya Pramanam. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. It is the apt and final conclusion of the Vedanta that all is Brahman. Time, space, living beings and the world, living in constant recognition of this fact, is what is called enlightenment. Brahman is pure and perfect, and one without a second. And the revealed scriptures are the sure and certain proof of this fact. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana, Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karvo Vahai, Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidvisho Vahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, the reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. Please, all of you come in and take your seats. We are just beginning the second class of the 6 proofs of truth. Because if you remember last week, we took these 6 proofs of truth, which you see in this chart displayed before you, and we took just one of them. So there's only 4 classes for this 6 proofs of truth, so I don't know if we'll make it through all 6 of them because I take a long time to flesh these out for you. They're very important both as philosophical principles as well as practices. I teach them as being practices, so that it's not just a matter of debate between intellectuals, as proofs of truth or non-truth tend to be in intellectual circles, but more that these are, number one, tools for uncovering the nature of reality, and number 2, very easy to connect to one another. As I was saying yesterday, or last week, last Sunday, that we looked at the first one, inference, and because that came first on the list in my little samyam of these 6. And then we looked at that anumana, we studied that, it means knowing after. So it's a proof of reality that you come to know something after you hear it, or you come to believe in it after you see it. And we took several charts on that, which I'll do a quick review of in a little bit. And then we have the second one, which is similitude, upamana. It means by analogy you come to know proof. Like if we were saying last week, if there's smoke on yonder hill, then there must be fire. So you infer from the smoke that there must be fire. The teaching is that if you see the universe of living beings all around you, as Sri Ramakrishna used to say, then you must know that Brahman is present there in some way, shape, or form. And in that way you can draw a conclusion. And so you can see that inference and similitude are very much connected to each other. You would come to know after you inspected it. And unfortunately, a lot of people aren't doing any kind of mental inspection these days of their surroundings. We have science as an example, but they're inspecting only the physical and have become very preoccupied with the particle, which we like to hear in Vedantas, but it'd be nice if they knew that there were several other strata of particles, all the way back to the particle of your thought, out of which objects have come. Nobody makes that kind of inward connection because, as we were saying before, science has you looking back in time, and then quite often religion has you looking up in space. So back in time and up in space are not going to cut it, because you're restricting yourself to one level of your mind's consciousness. So the ancient rishis knew that there were at least 4 other akashas, or bardos if you want to do it Tibetan, or spandas if you want to say it in Shaivism, or kingdoms of heaven if you want to put it, or fields of the Lord. There, in different traditions, it's been said in many different ways that there are these realms or worlds within you, and dreaming is one of those realms, as we've been saying lately. If you go into dream, then you're going into heaven. You're just doing it while your silver cord is still connected to the body, so at death you'll cut the silver cord and you'll go into heaven, if that's your destination. As our teacher Swami Sheshananda Ji Maharaj, peace and blessings be upon him, was always saying that he did not care for heaven. And Vedantas had a higher goal than heaven, because heaven was name and form in some sort of time and space still. And he was looking for Jivan Mukta in us. Hopefully, he said, if America could produce a few Jivan Muktas, then it would get beyond the intellectual frame of reference that it's in right now, which happens to be science is rather our religion. He made a remark one day that the Supreme Court of judges got together and trying to make a decision between whether the religionists or the scientists would get the go, and the Supreme Court of Judges decided on science. So theology got the back seat and became less popular, and science became our religion at that time. So now we're looking in terms of science as being able to answer everything. It gets into our medicines, and it gets into our way of thinking. And however, physics implies physical, and so these other levels of particle are not there to inspect, and we have to have some sort of interest, like an Eskimo has in snow conditions, like Sixon used to say. He inspects snow conditions every day because his life depends on it, but we're not inspecting our own levels of consciousness because we don't know that our spiritual life depends on that. And is why most people, and Vivekananda made that comment when he was here, in the West simply don't have a spiritual life. It's very doubtful whether they even have a real religion to follow at this time. The Kali Yuga, and it's not just true of Christianity, it's also true of Hinduism and other religions, that there's been quite a downward spiral of these religions away from the source. And so a subject like proofs of truth then should take on a real interest to us, because most of us in this room then are devotees of the Lord and seekers after truth and interested in enlightenment, and have been all our lives. But other people around us, including most of our relatives and ancestors and so forth, don't have that peaked interest yet, and aren't willing to intensify their practice in order to find the truth. Know the truth and the truth will set you free kind of level. So in these first two, we looked at one of them, we'll look at the other one. So I introduced them to you out the front today, Anumana and Upamana. And we will connect them later, and we'll connect them to the other four too, which, as you remember, are artapati, some sort of presumption or circumstantial implication. That is, it's assumption on a way, by way of making progress. You assume a thing to be true, and then you'll find out later if it's not, and you can grow by stages that way. It might be half true, it might be all true, or it might be entirely false, but until you presume it and take it as your station of meditation or concentration, you won't know. You'll stay on the fence all the time. So this staying on the fence is called doubt in terms of a person's spiritual life. And they're doubting the nature of reality. They're doubting the existence of God. They're doubting if Brahman is real. They're doubting if they have the Atman or Buddha nature in them. So all of this keeps you on the fence, and or you just, it would almost be better for you just to say, well, I'm going to be a rank materialist, and see how that goes for you. You might find out that it's very unsatisfying after a while, and you're longing for something deeper. You're pining for the fjords, as they say in Sweden. So you have this, as Buddha said, swans seeking a higher mountain lake each time. And they want to fly to a more pure and purer existence. And a lot of this is, of course, going to be based on your practices of spiritual life. Concentration, meditation, and samadhi are the three highest of those in yoga. And in Vedanta, it's Shravana, Manana, Dididasanam. You have to hear it first from a illumined preceptor, as we heard from Swami Sheshanandaji Maharaj, and he heard from Swami Shardananda and Holy Mother, and they heard from Sri Ramakrishna. And then you have to roll it over in your mind. I was saying last week that you go somewhere, and it's not just a cliche that you sit and watch a flower bloom and see the marvel of nature. In fact, both of those things are rather cliche. You're sitting silently in nature and watching things grow, but you're knowing that nature is just a faint expression of what you're looking for, that the real essence of the thing is in the great mind. Swami Vivekananda used to say, insects, plants, they're starting to talk about them having consciousness. They have no consciousness. Their consciousness is the Mahat's consciousness. So he knocks down this presumption, this false presumption, that God is in nature right away, because it's not in nature. Nature's insentient. And a lot of people have fantasies and romances and sentiments still about this, and so they're not making any headway. They're still materialists in a certain sense, even if they have these love affairs and romances with sunsets and trees and forests and so forth. They don't know the origins of things yet. And the origin of everything would be back in the great mind as seed thoughts. When you're giving a mantra, you're given a seed bijam in it, like Om, that kind of bijam. And so you're supposed to inspect that with manana. You're supposed to sit, and whether you're in nature or not doesn't really matter or not. You're supposed to sit and shut everything out and hear that sound within you, and then meditate upon it, like Sri Ramakrishna said, following sand dunes to the distant sound, you see. Then you'll know there's an ocean. So actually that's a very good example of inference, isn't it? Circumstantial implication. You hear the sound. It's like seeing the light in the distance, but you can't see the sun yet or the bonfire. Well, if you hear the sound of Om, but you can't see it yet or can't see its source, then you follow over sand dunes So you're inferring that it exists because you can hear it. So science knows that everything's based in vibration here, but they only know the atomic particle vibration. And have found out that that's changing at a billionth of a second, so it really doesn't have a very long shelf life, does it? It's really the very description of ephemeral or transitory passing. So if you follow the vibration deep enough into yourself, you'll find the origin of the thing. Then your inference will turn into direct spiritual experience, perception. And that's going to usually be based on shabda, verbal testimony. So you hear it from a teacher or from an illumined soul, shravana, and then you meditate on it, you get your own experience of it, and then you gain enlightenment, nidijasana. And that is the Vedantic way of putting to death doubt and fear. Because if you know a thing, then you don't fear it anymore. People only have fear because they don't know the nature of the thing yet. It would be the same with a ghost. I mean, Sri Ramakrishna had plenty of examples of these 6 proofs when he's speaking in the gospel. Hari puts on a sheet, you see, goes into the next room to scare his sister, and she gets really scared, see it, that night. And then she gets suspicious, you see. The next night he wants to scare her again, you see. So he puts on the sheet again and goes, this time she's like scared, but she's doubtful, you see. So she grabs the sheet, pulls it off. Oh, I see, it's you see. So coming to know the nature of a thing gets rid of fear. And then you're probably going to not be taken as a fool or take any wooden nickels, as they say again, in your experience. Well, philosophically speaking, which is one of the wings of the bird, the other is religion. Philosophy and religion have to be taken together because they will prove each other. And one will keep, the knowledge will keep devotion from becoming too sentimental, and devotion will keep knowledge from becoming too dry, which I hope I'm not becoming when I present you a very abstruse teaching here. This is, of all the teachings we've given over the years, this is probably the potentially driest of all teachings. So I'm trying to make it live for you. And it occurred to me last night in dream, because my dreams are not dreams anymore, they're levels of consciousness I go to. And I've changed my thinking about that completely. And based on my own inner experiences in dream, I know that dream is the kingdom of heaven. So when I see my father who's passed, we talk and we have conversations. I probably see him 3 or 4 times a year in my dream. And I'm always amazed that he's still alive. That's the one thing that permeates my dream about my father, is that he's still here. I still talk with him. He never went anywhere. He shifted consciousness and dropped a physical form, but his physical form is actually still there too, isn't it, in a sense? Well, that's memory, and memory isn't just sentiment to Indian seers. It's smriti. I just chanted about it. Mantranam jiva bhuta tulya smrita shakti rupaya. They remember Shakti, the nature of Shakti, and therefore they know her to be the perfect eye consciousness in everything. So through the mantra bhuta, they know these words to be full of meaning. And that's why I sat up and paid full attention to my teacher. I never missed a word in every lecture I ever attended to him. I sat perfectly still and listened to everything he said. I was drinking it in as if it were nectar, because it was the only time I heard the truth in my life. I didn't hear it from my ancestors, from my parents, from anyone else. Didn't hear it in church. Didn't hear it amongst my friends. And we call that word dharma. And so that's qualified non-dualism. So when you take up a teaching like this, it's inferring non-duality, because she's the essence of non-duality, that chant says. She's the very essence of non-duality. So she's the power in the word and the power in everything, but she escapes detection. She's the most subtle of all. If we want to say subtle in our language, that's the word we used. But if we want to define the word Sanskrit, anaranya, That's the subtlemost of the subtle, which refers to her presence or to Brahman. They reserve that for Shakti and Brahman. So there can't be anything subtler than those two great sentient living principles. What to call them? The reality. So it occurred to me, I went on a little trajectory there, it occurred to me that since in my dream last night somebody informed me, you know at tomorrow's class what you can do, here's something else you can do. So I thought about it, and I had already sent the charts to our camera person to be able to display them on our live streaming, for our live streaming audience. Welcome to all of you from different parts of the country, from Hungary, from Iceland, from India. I know there's a few people watching. So, but last night, this voice told me two things. What I was going to teach at the summer retreat, which is on the American River in about a month, and what I should do in today's class. They said, you should really show that chart on the 7 great ideals, because you're talking about the proofs of truth without telling them what the truth is. So we probably want to, I don't think it's backtracking, but I think it's supporting this last class we gave about inference. See, in this way then, let me give you India's conclusion about what divine reality is as far as words can say. And you see here the Sapta Maha Alaya Vijnana is what you're seeing here, and what I hope to see here on my chart, on my iPad here. So that's the 7 great ideals. So if you were to try and explain the 6 truths, you might want to avail yourself of the 7 great ideals of India. So you see, Sapta is 7, Maha Alaya Vijnana, basically the highest wisdom, Vijnana. These are the 7 principles in which you would meditate upon and take as reality. So you might want to know that even before you try and prove it to yourself, because the 6 proofs of truth are definitely a way of proving it to yourself, to get rid of doubt and fear and ignorance and so forth, to get the certitude, to have the courage of your convictions. But then you also want to be able to communicate this to your friends, maybe to your children, because they need to be raised in the Dharma, and other beings around who may come forward and question you about the nature of reality. So there you see these 7 have been listed. Teaching of the great rishis of India. Now, and along the vein I was just talking, I like this quote of Swami Vivekananda very much. In his letters he said, "The world has not come to that state yet when the ideal can be realized in society. The progress of the world through all its evils is making it fit for the ideals slowly but surely." So, as we say, we don't see thousands and thousands of people rushing to embrace the Dharma nowadays. I've probably got 15 people watching right now, and I've been broadcasting for years and years, and I've been teaching for 50 years. So it takes something, in this day and age, some removing of veils or some deep penetration, like I said, studying snow conditions, some desire to want to know the nature of reality. And even if that is because it'll remove my suffering, you see, because suffering is one of the things that drives beings towards the highest truth. They don't want to suffer anymore, and they're hoping for a way out of that suffering. So that is one of the good reasons. And we know pleasure can also be a kind of suffering. Too much stacked on top of that, and people get very bored with life and experiences the five senses and the five objects. So Swamiji is just simply making a clear-cut conclusion here about what he saw not only in America but in his own country, India, that both Hinduism and Christianity, in that fundamentalist sense, and that had been plagued by this lack of dharma being transmitted to the people by maybe, say, the priest class, or by, in this country, by the church fathers. It's priestcraft that's going on, he said, that's basically letting the ideal down. So that's why the Guru is not popular, my teacher used to say. Why is the Guru not popular? Because he came here, I went to his classes, like you're coming here to mine, in Portland, Oregon, in the 80s and 90s, and he only had, anywhere from 20 to 30 people on a Sunday, and almost nobody there at the ashram the rest of the week. So once he said from the pulpit, he said, the Guru is not popular here. Why is that? Because the church has taken his place. So he knew that people weren't getting this one-on-one instruction of the Dharma from an illumined soul. That's Shravana. You have to hear that truth, and it'll come to you as qualified non-dualism leading to non-dualism. You may have an interest first in non-dualism. Like, oh, I like that I am my father, or aham brahmasmi kind of teaching. I am Brahman. But I don't understand it quite yet. I can't seem to grasp it and keep a hold of it. So, therefore I need to hear these teachings that will whet my appetite for it. It'll slake my thirst a little bit, if you have a thirst to begin with. So, you see, for thousands of years in India, the Dharma has been given out from father to son and mother to daughter, and from great rishis to their families. It really went through families, and we're not getting that kind of inheritance from our parents here in the West, and probably haven't got that kind very often even in 2,000 years of European life. How many lifetimes has the Caucasian soul had, if you want to say that? Over 2,000 years of Europe and a couple hundred years in America. If they're following that particular trajectory, the trajectory of Abraham to Moses to Jesus to Muhammad, and now we've turned toward Far East to follow that trajectory of Ram and Krishna and Shiva and great souls that bring us that Dharma in the train of time. So Swamiji here then is saying the world in this state, in this particular time, is not ready for this, but their sufferings are making them ready. He goes on at the bottom, I might as well finish up the quote, because he goes on in that letter saying, the majority will have to go on with slow growth. The exceptional ones will have to get out to realize the ideal in the present state of things. So he's making no bones about it that there is such a thing as transcendental consciousness, or witness consciousness, or absolute consciousness, or timeless, deathless awareness, or Chaitanya, or Brahman, or Moksha, or Mukti, or Kaivalya, or Asampragyata, or Nirvikalpa, or Buddha's Nirvana. There is such a high state as that that's available to people, and they need to seek it. And they will need to seek it in stages. That's what Sri Ramakrishna said. The word in Sanskrit is avasta. You don't jump from the lowest step to the highest step. In fact, some of these pseudo-Advaitas in America are trying to do that and just skip all the middle. It's like having a sandwich with no filling. It doesn't taste very good. You need that middle, which is called the Dharma, and the teachings that will reawaken your samskaras and your interest in truth. It'll get rid of your apathy. There's a good word now, is the apathy of people, or you could maybe, in this day and age, I'm meaning in this decade or last 2 decades, there's 2 words you could really apply to the fact that the Dharma is not getting in very deep to us. That's apathy and distraction. Not that it was all that different in other ages, but it's become pronounced now. Sri Ramakrishna called it worldliness in the Gospel of Ramakrishna. when M wrote his words down in the 1800s, in that great testament, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. So this is my introduction then with Swamiji's quote to these 7 ideals. Let's look at them, because I put a quote from India's seers under each one of them. So first, of course, is Brahman, the ultimate, the absolute, the unformed, unnamed, birthless, deathless reality. Words, of course, will fall short. It's like nato vacho nivartante, aprapya manasa saha, ananda brahmana vidvan, nabhibeti kutaschaneti, the Upanishads say. Basically it means that Brahman from which words and speech fall back in awe, unable to comprehend or explain it. The one who realizes the truth of that Brahman destroys doubt and fear for all times. And so it is. Now this is the direct words of the seers, Shabda, in a testament to the existence of Brahman. So you're going to have to get through some of your doubts and your fears, maybe doubts about the nature of reality and fears about meeting your own true self one day. You think you don't have fear of your own self? Try looking in deep meditation at emptiness, or try facing off with your ego and convincing it that it has to die. There's a beautiful song in India. I have received a command from the Divine Mother of the Universe that death must die. See? This is the way they think. A very interesting turn of thought and phrase, both in the Upanishads. Death must die, because death is an illusion. So you're holding this thought of death. What did the father of yoga call that? The 5th klesha. Nivesha, which means fear of death. It's the 5th and lowest of all hells. The first hell you fall into is ignorance of your true nature. Notice how India is different than Christian hell. The devil in India is your ego, is yourself. There's no devil other than that. Then the hell in our tradition would be not knowing your true nature. That's hell number 1. It's called avidya. Swami Shishanand used to use that word in every lecture several times. Second hell is asmita, egotism, or egoism, maybe be better. Just this sense of separate I, the separate I maker. That's what Vashishta called the ego. There's only really one I. We just chanted to her. She is the imperishable I consciousness that the seers know and love, right? So now we're making a separate I. Well, it's all right if that I worships her, but if it forgets her and falls away, becomes its own separate I, then it's made itself into a separate I maker. One of my students came up yesterday and said, I have to go and pull the plug on my brother, my relatives, you see. So I told him, well, here's what you need to know. We will be in the end what we were in the beginning, bubbles, forming, rising, and dissolving in Mother's infinite ocean of pure consciousness. That's right out of the scriptures in India. We will be in the end what we were in the beginning, bubbles, forming, rising, and dissolving in Mother's ocean of consciousness. You can't get out of Mother's ocean of consciousness, see. So that's Brahman. You're just taking on a separate I, and then living for a while, and then dissolving. You'll do that again, as much as bubbles rise, until you don't want to form a bubble anymore. Maybe you just want to be the ocean. And of course that would be becoming one with Brahman, these great words I just used a couple of minutes ago. So anyway, egotism is the 2nd great hell. 3rd hell and 4th hell kind of go together, attachment and aversion. Patanjali, the father of yoga, this is his teaching, 5-fold, 5 kleshas. In Buddhism they're called kilesha in Pali language. So the tradition, it follows itself. So attraction and aversion is like saying good and bad, or virtue and vice, or any other pair of opposites that you want to bring into the conversation will be a good overall title to give to this particularly nasty set of dualities, which is the third and fourth hell. And the fifth hell is then clinging to life, if you want to say abhinivesha. But you could also call it by its opposite name, fear of death. You cling to life because you think your ego is real. That bubble cannot give itself up. There's no way around it. See, all bubbles will dissolve in the ocean. But are you going to dissolve in the ocean of samsara? The ocean of suffering? Or are you going to dissolve in Mother's Ananda Sagara, ocean of bliss? That's kind of your choice there, and it's a no-brainer, isn't it? So this comes up in context then with doubt. You see, my ignorance is causing me doubt about the nature of reality. But if I infer that there's fire on that hill where there's smoke, if you bring that into the philosophical context, then here's the creation. There must be a creator, right? It wouldn't make sense otherwise. And here's form, and there must be formlessness. Now you're shifting over to anupalabdhi. You see, you're beginning to get the idea of form and formlessness as a high duality. But Sri Ramakrishna used to sit amongst people, and some people would say, "Oh, the city is getting so busy, and it's so dirty, and I can't meditate," and so forth. The jute mill's going off. You see, crowds are rushing by, raising all this dust. And Sri Ramakrishna, where is God? And Sri Ramakrishna said, where there's a great collection of people, then there's a great concentration of Brahman. You see, so he was looking at things all differently. So he was, as we just chanted, the other chant I gave at the beginning of class was, name, form, time, space, Brahman. That it's the last conclusion of Vedanta, that all is Brahman. Time, space, living beings in the world. Well, that doesn't really sound like Vedanta, does it? Because usually it's like world, space, time, they're illusions. See? But now you've come to this Vedanta Didima. You've gotten rid of the unreal by this kind of reasoning, and now you can declare, you've practiced neti neti, now you can declare iti iti. Oh, I've come to know all this is Brahman. And that was the state of a Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. But he didn't advise jumping to it and not practicing neti neti first. And I think that's even a property of bhakti yoga. Don't you practice discrimination to know what to love and know what not to love? Well, that's just discrimination in bhakti, you see. Because you're going to be loving all the wrong things in the wrong places at the wrong times. I think people have had enough experience now to know that. And that's why they're suffering. And that's why they're not, that's why he's saying here, it's going to be a long time for the world to suffer enough to come to know that they need something deeper. And so the few that do, they have to get up and out. See? So it's like, I need to get my jivan mukta, you see. It's like Buddha saying, I need to get out of the palace, you see. And it was the same with Ram in his time. I need to leave the palace and go on pilgrimage. Both Ram and Buddha did the same thing. Born in rich circumstances, and they had to leave, see. So, get away from the problem because they were just becoming part of the problem. But if you get some objectivity and get away, then you can get your enlightenment, whether it's nirvana or, in Ram's case, Brahmagyan, and then come back and free others. That's the whole thing why Ishvara comes, and we'll get to Ishvara in a minute. All right, let's read this quote about Brahman from a purely non-dual knower. I mean, if you knew Swami Sheshanandaji, like I knew Swami Sheshanandaji, then you'd know that Gaudapada was on his lips several times in every lecture. He used to start his lectures going, I salute Gaudapada, for he was an illumined soul. So I hope my impression was pretty good. So Gaudapada says here, Brahman is unborn, free of sleep. Brahman is unborn, free of sleep, devoid of dreams, beyond names and forms, flashing up all at once. It is omniscient, like intense concentration without end, but transcendent of conceptualization. It is silent, with no words, completely calm, illumined once and for all, unmoving and free from fear. I don't think there's a better description in words of Brahman than that. I've never found one. But of course, I had to take that from several of the slokas in the Gaudapada's Karika, his commentary, to put that together. But this was all his meaning about Brahman. I like particularly that it's like intense concentration, but without conceptualization. That's particularly poignant. Because you think you start to concentrate, and you have, say, your Ishvara. Well, that's not free of conceptualization, folks. You still have the son, and it's in the way of the father, maybe. So you're going to have to learn how to give up form and get to formlessness. So in our tradition, you practice both. Our teacher, again, Swami Sheshananda, is coming up a lot today. Maybe he was speaking in my dreams last night. I know what you can do. So he used to say, that in our tradition, we had our Ishtam, we had our mantra, and that was all the realm of form. But we also had to put that aside once our mind was free and concentrate on Brahman. And we'd have to spend some time with formlessness. And one of those kleshas is there, right? Fear of death. So if you're concentrating on the death of the ego when you say give up the thoughts in the mind, because the ego is operating the mind and its thoughts, and it wants them for itself, and it wants form, and it wants names, and it wants time, and it wants space, and it wants, well, it may not want cause and effect, but it's going to get it. That's the fivefold Maya, right? Nama, Rupa, Desha, Kala, Nimitta, time, space, name, form, and causality. So if you're concentrating without conceptualization, then you're going to have to pierce through, like Sri Ramakrishna did with Mother Kali, when Totapari put the glass to his third eye. Like he said, I can see nothing but Mother, I can see nothing but Mother. And Totapari was an Advaitist, and he wanted him to have the formless state. So he looked around, found a sharp piece of rock or glass on the ground, and stuck it to Sri Ramakrishna's third eye, and pressed. He said, concentrate here. And Sri Ramakrishna said, all forms just scattered apart, you see. And he had this vision of Brahman, so the light of Brahman, indivisible, expansive. Holy Mother had that too. She said, one day I was meditating, all of a sudden waves of light came rushing at me, washed over me, and I was drunk for days. I was in a drunken state for days. It took a long time to come down from that experience. So meditating for years at a time, and of course, amongst all these great souls that she was born with, then this experience was bound to come to her. And when we talk about Ishvara, we'll have to mention Ishvari. I probably should have put /Ishvari there, because she's the hidden mother, the divine mother of the universe. So anyway, isn't this a beautiful quote? Flashing up all at once means spontaneous, but very, very concentrated, but free of conceptualization. So this is almost leaning toward the idea of Buddhist emptiness. You see, Gaudapada was sometimes called by the Buddhists a hidden Buddhist, but Nagarjuna was sometimes called by the Vedantists as a hidden Vedantist. So they each want to borrow the greatest of the seers from each other's fold eventually. But basically, I think it means that when you have that one definitive experience of indivisible consciousness, that pretty much separates, takes away all isms. I'm neither a Vedantist nor a Buddhist now. Maybe Advaitist would be the way to say it, a non-dualist. So it would be like Avatut. Sometimes he sings about that. Nishkama kama mihanama katam vadami Nisanga sanga hihanama katam vadami Nisarasararahitam chakatam vadami Jnanamritam samarasam gaganopamoham Advaita rupa akilam hikatam vadami Dvaita svarupam akilam hikatam vadami Nityam tvanityam akilam hikatam vadami Jnanamritam samarasam gaganopamoham Jnanamritam samarasam gaganopamoham. He sings in these 40 verses, which we are actually going to sing in Portland. The whole thing we'll sing together, these 40 verses, next month. So it's a seminar called Jnanamritam Stotram that you can come and attend. We'll all sit, who comes to the seminar, and we'll sing this, and we'll study its verses. In these particular verses, he says, how can it be said that Brahman has desires or has none? It is outright persiflage to call that attached or unattached. Similarly, in the end, it is futile reasoning to label it real or unreal. I am pure existence, wisdom and bliss, as boundless as the sky, infinite like space. Is it the causeless hub of all dualities? Is it non-dual only? Is it the nature of eternity? And can the term non-eternal explain it? I only know that I am that pure existence, wisdom and bliss, as boundless as the sky and infinite like space. So he puts it in terms of direct personal spiritual experience. So it doesn't seem so much like so far away anymore, does it? Like you can't attain it, or it's untouchable. See, it's neither touchable nor untouchable. It's neither form nor formless. If you're using words like this, then you've fallen short of it. They asked that question of Sri Ramakrishna. He said, can the mind know Brahman? And he said, the ordinary mind cannot know Brahman. But the pure mind can know Brahman, because the pure mind is Brahman. So that gave us some hope, you see. He says maybe we should work on our sadhana, purify our minds, take away some of these impurities, which in India, you know, are not like just moral decrepitude and various sins we've done and all that, which are plaguing us. But many of us have, like in this quote, have gotten to a place where we might want to get out of the world at the state it's in right now and follow a higher trajectory and like move into a higher state of consciousness, because you do that in dream and you do that in deep sleep every day, every night. So in that case, then you'd want to know this, that Brahman can be known by the pure mind, or Buddha mind, sometimes it's called. So that's a look at Brahman. Let's look underneath it, because it's so close, as the state of Brahman is called Mahanirvana. The quote there is by Lord Buddha, because he had Mahanirvana. At the end of his life, you see the big famous statue of him lying on his side. There's one of those, huge one of those in Japan that we can go to, and a few we've been to in India. But he passed into Mahanirvana, and so he says here, be not a traveler in samsara. Fall not a victim of endless sorrows. The Buddhas all declare nirvana to be the supreme state. That verily is the safe haven and the supreme refuge. After arriving at that state, a man is emancipated from all suffering. So the first noble truth there is suffering, of course, is on the mind of Lord Buddha when he was living. One of the great contributions he made, he departed from the traditional Upanishads, Vedas, and all that, although he knew them very well. And he also knew the Samkhya Yoga because he took 2 Samkhya Yoga teachers before he left. So he was more concerned with the suffering of people of that time and how to get beyond this samsara, this ancestor loop. You're being born again and again with your ancestors in the river of time. So one of his later teachings was, get out of the river and sit on the banks. See, that sounds to me like manana. Now that I Shravana heard the truth, I want to get out and meditate on it in a peaceful place. And Krishna says that in the Gita. Go to the forest in nature, maybe near running water, fix a seat for yourself, not too high, not too low. Concentrate your breath, and then concentrate on the prana in your head and your Atman in your heart. Think of nothing but me and reach the highest state. That's Bhagavad Gita. So all these seers will concur with one another that this is what the soul needs to do, whether it takes you 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness, or whether it took Buddha 49 days under the bo tree, it's to be done. And or 12 days and 12 nights, maybe you can reduce it to in the wilderness. Or like Muhammad once a year going out into the desert all by himself. All these great souls had these periods of withdrawal from the world in order to get to a higher state where they could help the world. It wasn't a callous running away, although for sure you didn't want to get pulled down into the world of your ancestors and their samsaric loop. See? So that means these chakras, right? The 3 lower chakras are the realms of rebirth, and the 4th chakra is the realm of liberation. And then deeper and deeper liberation as you open up the throat, 3rd eye, and crown chakra. That's all Kundalini system that we studied before. So, be not a traveler in samsara, he says. He wants to, you can even sing about that, and this time we could take a great being like Shankara, to illustrate Mahanirvana. Aham nirvikalpo nirakara rupo vibhutva chu sarvatra sarvendriyanam Nacha sangatam naiva muktir nameya chidananda rupaha shivoham shivoham chidananda rupaha Shivoham, Shivoham. So he starts with the word Om, and ends with the word Om. Everything does start to begin with the word, according to Jesus when he told John. In the beginning was the word. So aham nirvikalpa doesn't sound like he has any doubt. I am. Aham means I. Aham nirvikalpa. I am the highest state of awareness. I am Mahanirvana. That's my nature. So he doesn't start off mincing words or starting off with dharma or with any kind of fear-based morality or immorality. Jumps right to the chase and says he's realized it. And of course he realized it before he was 32. So had all this wisdom in him when he was 8. And was teaching graybeards in his teens. So this is a Jesus kind of being for India. India has seen many Jesuses. So he says, Aham nirvikalpa nirakara rupa, I have no form, I have no cause. Vibhu tvacha sarvatra sarvendriyanam. Basically, Vivekananda says, I have no form or fancy, the all-pervading am I. Everywhere I exist, yet I am beyond the senses. Neither salvation am I, nor anything that could be known. I am pure consciousness and bliss. I am Shiva. I am Shiva. So that's the famous Nirvana Shatakam of Shankara in 6 verses. 6 verses on enlightenment. So, say no more. I mean, there's not much to say about Brahman and Mahanirvana. Use some musical words, some scriptural connotations and verses. You figure it out now, if that rings true to you. I and my Father are one. Be thee perfect as thy Father in heaven is perfect. Put those two together and do some manana on it. And probably do a little practice in this day and age so that you won't get caught in this round of people that are circling on samsaras. See, samsara pragbara, the river of bound souls, but there's also samsara koivalya pragbara, the river of free souls that are moving always to these higher chakras or shifting to higher states of awareness. And they can do that while they're in the body too. That's called what? The Jivan Mukti. Let's look next though at Ishvara. Swami Vivekananda took a quote from him. Ishvara is the sum total of individuals. Yet he himself is also an individual in the same way as the human body is a unit of which each cell is an individual. That's analogy, by the way, which he just used upamana there. The collective is God. The component is the soul, or jiva. The existence of Ishvara, therefore, depends on that of the jiva, as the body on the cell, and vice versa. So it's ingenious because there's only one Ishvara soul that comes in each great Mahayuga, you see. And there's only Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, also 3 great souls, as it were, then, that take up this long length of time. And then in the next length of time, other great souls will take on their position. So Ishvara is the shining pillar of light around which everything is rotating in the realm of name and form. Some things are circling it closer, others are far away from it. See? Those that are closer are the gods, but they must be higher gods, because you probably remember the story in the Upanishad, right? About this pillar of light that appeared to the gods. You know that story? The great pillar of light all of a sudden appeared in Indra's heaven. So Indra's, what the hey? No. Huh? What is that? What the hell is that? So he said, looked at the god of fire and said, go check that out for me. So Agni went close to the pillar and saw it. The pillar said, who are you? Sounds like my teacher, Swami Sheshananda, would say something. Who are you? And then Agni said, I'm the god of fire, I can burn anything. So the pillar put down a straw, said, burn this. So Agni ran it every way it possibly could to try and burn the straw and failed, and went back with his tail drooping, as it were, to Indra and reported. So Indra said, okay, god of the wind, Vayu, you go and check out the pillar. See? So Vayu went there, same thing happened. Pillar put down a straw, blow this away. Huffed and he puffed and he tried to blow it down. See, it wouldn't happen. So all of the gods had their turn. See, and then finally Indra himself went to try. Oh, it's not that the boys do a man's work. So he went, he said, I'll check out this pillar myself. And as soon as he arrived at the pillar, it disappeared. And instead, the Divine Mother was there. This is the Keno Upanishad. And this is the first time we see her appearing in a scripture for such a long time in the Keno Upanishad. And it's a very short Upanishad. It'd be worth a read. And so Indra was asking, what was that? That was Brahman, you see. You'll come to know that's your overlord, as it were. That's the ultimate reality that the gods don't know. So this sort of, as I was, illustrates my point, you see, about the ultimate reality and how the gods can fall short of it. So in that sense then, Ishvara is that central pillar of light around which everything is rotating, revolving, orbiting, if you will. It's an internal pillar of light. And it was fashioned in the furnace of the infinite light of Brahman. See, Ishvara is Brahman in form. So Vivekananda says very nicely here, and also you can sing about that. I had it reminded me of a musical way of singing about Ishvara, which is beautiful. Chintaya mama manasahari chidgana niranjana Chintaya mama manasahari chidgana niranjana Kiva anupama bhati mohana murati vakata hridaya ranjana Kiva anupama bhati mohana murati vakata hridaya ranjana Chintaya mama manasahari chidgana niranjana Navaragaranjita Kotishashi vinindita Navaragaranjita Kotishashi vinindita Dhuli chuchamaki arupa loke Kulake shihori jivana Dhuli chamaki arupa loke Kulake shihori jivana Chintaya mama manasahari Chidgana niranjana Chidgana is a mass, gana, of pure conscious awareness. And so Trilokyanath Sanyal, one of the great Bengali devotees of Sri Ramakrishna, wrote, meditate, O mind, on Lord Hari, which to him was Sri Ramakrishna, the ever perfect eternal consciousness absolute. What incomparable radiance! How fascinating is his wondrous form! How dear is he to all his devotees! Even more beauteous in fresh blossoming love that shames the splendor of a million moons. Like lightning gleams the glory of his form, filling the soul with deep joy and sweet ecstasy. Meditate, O Lord, on Lord Hari, the pure, the ever-perfect, eternal consciousness absolute. And then the song breaks into a very fast section that's very beautiful too. So that's what occurred to me when I thought about Ishvara. This beautiful music in which bhakti, devotional music in which has this powerful shabda in it. You see, it's a proof of truth itself. That's why Sri Ramakrishna loved to have the songs around him. Is he could teach abstruse philosophy, went into high consciousness and came out and speak from high consciousness. Sometimes it was even hard for him to come down out of high consciousness to use words. So he was like a living Buddha there, only again and again coming in and out. Buddha did it once, came back, and probably did it more times on his own, but the thing with Sri Ramakrishna was they're in the public eye many times having samadhi, coming down and having people watching the samadhi ask him questions. That's never been done before. Go into the highest samadhi. So he'd sometimes have trouble bringing his mind down. He'd have to put his finger in a glass of water, give him some water. And so he'd remember that he was at the realm of the 5 elements: air, earth, water, fire, and ether. That's how high his mind had gone. And your mind goes there in deep sleep. You have this experience of chidgana. Just it's all light. And deep sleep is conditioned a little bit by seeds, that's all. And when the seer sees those seeds in deep sleep, like Om, Hring, Shrim, Klim, Krim, Om, Aim, and so forth, Hum, Fat, Swaha, they won't water them. So they won't come back down onto the wheel of samsara with the ancestors. Or if they do water them, they'll water select ones and come down as an illumined soul called a Jivan Mukta. Let's look at that next, because the song expresses it much better than the words can. Jivan Mukti. The Jivan Mukti is one who has nearly forgotten dualities. I like that. And of course this is Shankara speaking. Whose heart is filled with bliss and whose mind harbors no impressions, who is indifferent to time and its phases, into whom enjoyments enter like rivers, leaving no effects, devoid of eye, and who knows no difference between the world and Brahman. So that's that beyond neti, beyond emptiness state, which great souls have reached, which is indivisible oneness, or Lexixian used to call it not two-ness. You don't want to limit Brahman by calling it one. So you be very careful and say not two, not two. So isn't it right? Because here he's almost forgotten dualities. He's forgotten that there were two things, Brahman and the world, or you and I, or male and female, or higher and lower, or nirvana and samsara. All dualities have then disappeared. And it's just living in this one undifferentiated state of pure conscious awareness, which the song called Chitgana. Om Drishyam Pratitam Pravilapayan San Matram Anandaganam Vibhavayam. Shankara says in one of his scriptures. Anandaganam. There he calls it a massive bliss. What kind of bliss? Not the kind that the ego enjoys. It's a massive, unalloyed, uninterrupted bliss. Now, words are pretty good. Inference is pretty good in that case, isn't it? For proving to you that the existence of Brahman. It's unalloyed, uninterrupted. Oh, why didn't you say so? I mean, because you see, these two words all of a sudden just put it all in perspective for me. I thought it got polluted by something, or that there was differences in it. Oh, no, it's undifferentiated, it's unalloyed, and there's no breaks in it. It's uninterrupted. Doesn't it sound like his teacher's teacher? He's saying here, this quote sounds just like his teacher's teacher Gaudapada talking about Brahman. So is there really real difference between the one who has realized Brahman and Brahman? The Upanishads say no. Those who realize Brahman become Brahman. They are Brahman. Someone once doubted the enlightenment of a certain person. I won't mention any names. Oh, you're not enlightened, they said. The person said, well, I know. My ignorance is gone, I know. But that sounds like knowledge has ignorance with it. So the Upanishads state that those who say they know not, and those who say they don't know, they probably know. So the person said, well, yes, but I know, and I know that I know. Oh, well, that sounds arrogant, the person responded. Oh, well, how about this? Freedom from not knowing has been granted to me by Divine Mother. See how it goes? That's not arrogant anymore. That's not the ego putting any stamp on it anymore. So say, you don't know. Well, I know and I know that I know. That sounds arrogant. Freedom from not knowing has been granted to me by you, Mother. So it's freedom from not knowing. It's beyond the statement of the mind can't know Brahman. I know and I know that I know. It's a beautiful song in India. So of course this would be called Brahmagyan. That's the knowledge of the knower and the known. All three of those, knowledge, knower, and what is to be known, that Krishna says in the Gita, come together in Brahmagyan. This was the pet love of Vasishta and other early rishis of India. They loved Brahmagyan above everything else. Knowledge of Brahman. What does it say there? In the state of Brahmagyan, one sees both within and without. One sees that is God, that has become body, mind, life, and soul. A man attains Brahmagyan as soon as his mind is annihilated. With the annihilation of the mind dies the ego which says, I, which is right out of the Gospel stated by Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa Dev. Brahmagyan. Let's look at Mahat Seva then, across the board there. Sri Krishna, whose teachings in the Gita are so much early on around karma and how to deal with karma, how to purify karma, how to go beyond karma, sannyas karma and so forth. He says, the unenlightened act out of attachment. Thus, the enlightened must act out of non-attachment, desirous of guiding the multitudes. The 7 great rishis and 4 manus, Vasishta was one of those, have come from my mind. Were born of my mind. That's called mind-born children. You'd only understand that if you knew the kingdoms of heaven within you. See, if you went there to these higher, inner, deeper worlds, and you knew that there were mind-born children, because that wouldn't make sense otherwise, right? The only way it would make sense out here is, Patanjali said when he was living, when the yogi is in the body, he makes sons and daughters into yogis. So he'll pass on the teachings and they'll become his sons and daughters. So that's the only reference I could find to a mind-born son on the physical level. But here he's talking about back with the Mahat, you see, back with Lord Brahma, the firstborn. He makes sons and daughters. Right? So that's why I said here, the 7 great rishis and the 4 manus were born of my mind. They serve and sustain all creatures. That's Mahat Seva at a high level. The wise ones, imbued with equanimity, renounce personal gain and serve the great and the small alike. Mahat Seva. If I had anything for that. Yeah. They serve the small and the great alike. It reminded me when I read it of this hymn of Shankara. Guru Charanam Bhuja Nirvara Bhaktaha Samsara Racharadvava Muktaha Sendriya Manasa Niyamad Eva Drakyasinija Hriyatam Devam Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Mudhamate Samprapte Sanihite Kale Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukren Karene. Beautiful hymn of Bhaja Govindam in so many verses. That's the 31st verse. And all the acharyas add 1 verse to that song every lifetime since Shankara was in the body. It might be the longest song on earth and it's continuing to grow. So he says, through deep devotion to the lotus feet of your preceptor, become released soon from transmigratory processes. Thus, through the discipline of the mind and the senses and service, you will finally behold that deity who resides in your heart. So, Mahat Seva, the great service. You could call it Rishi Yogya if you want. See, So it's a thief, Sri Krishna says in the Gita, who lives and doesn't give back, you see. So this world will not be for them, how can the next world be for them if they don't live and give back? So to reverse this tendency or this trend of selfishness that has come over people, which is very nicely illustrated by the present state of affairs that Vivekananda was writing about even back in 1893 in this country, then we do Rishi Yagya. All right, my teacher came, he taught me, I am Guru Bhyo Namaha. I have to salute him every day, I have to think about him, I have to do manana, I have to recall him to mind. He came following Swami Vivekananda and to bring Dharma into this country. Into the belly of the beast he came. Swami Sheshananda used to say, why do we love Swami Vivekananda? Because he was a lion of Vedanta, but this lion left the cage. So he just didn't stay in India, Swami Sheshananda said. He broke open the cage and took it to all countries. And this is the Vedanta that we see today, trying to get a foothold. We ourselves must make sure that that foothold happens. It's our responsibility, and it's also a great boon, because we could be among those few people who get out doing it. I think that's maybe a little bit callous or something. Vivekananda loved all people, but he made a statement once, God saved a lot of them, but saved me from them. So if you're working with a whole cross-section of people, and the seer, the saint, and the sage, the vibhuti, the jivan mukta in many cases, they don't. They just work with special beings. This being works with all levels of being. Ishvara goes to the very fallen and lowly and helps them up out of darkness. So that's why this being gets a bad shake. He's not popular, see, because they see him consorting with lower types and they go, ooh, he must not be divine. See? Like Sri Ramakrishna getting cancer and half of the people that were around him left him. See? Because, he's a person who's divine can't get cancer. He was spitting into a cup every day, with blood and stuff. And so they didn't, even some of the direct disciples were like, kind of didn't want to touch that cup. Vivekananda noticed that. He walked in one day, noticed it, and he took this cup and drank it. Just to get them over their, suspicion, like as if that could cause you cancer just because. So he, very unique soul with full knowledge and no fear of death. Left the body at 39, like Shankara leaving the body at 32. We can't help but draw a parallel between Vivekananda, Shankara, and Lord Buddha. And might as well throw Lord Shiva in there too, because Vivekananda was so Shiva-like. In the remaining minutes, we have just enough time after, I guess I did give you the English to that verse of Bhaja Govindam, to look at Prema Bhakti. Prahlada was one of the great souls that Sri Ramakrishna often mentioned in the Gospel. Narada, Prahlada, he liked these beings particularly because Prahlada was the son of an Asura. He was an Asuric being. He was born with the Asuras, but he developed love for Krishna and didn't tell his father about that, you see, because the Asuras are fighting with these higher beings all the time. War doesn't happen just in this level. It happens in the kingdoms of heaven too, if you want to look into it. Notice how all the scriptures are couched in war. Gita, Quran, Bible. So anyway, war is going on all the time in those three realms. So Prahlada was exceptional. You see, if some very fine being reaches enlightenment, the saints and seers will go, very good. Oh, should have happened, you see. But if somebody who's very evil tendencies or born in bad conditions like that reaches enlightenment, they applaud, stand up, applaud. flawed, because he worked through all these things. And actually those beings are rather like Ishvara, right? They will go down to the fallen and lowly and take people up with them. That might give them crucifixion. That might give them poisoned food, like Buddha. That might give them cancer of the throat, like Sri Ramakrishna. It's in every tradition, kind of the vicarious atonement, they call it, and all that. We call it, taking on the karma of others. So anyway, Prahlada says here about prema bhakti, because he had this intense love for the Lord. In the incomparable state of prema bhakti, one's newly awakened awareness focuses on divine reality. The devotee dwells ecstatically in this fresh revelation, as all of existence naturally worships Ishvara without interruption. The entire collection of worlds and lokas then becomes a never-ending puja to and for the Lord. Well, that's what Prahlada used to do when he was young. He loved Krishna, or the Lord, and so he would sneak off to the forest and do a puja when his father and the other asuras weren't looking. And one day the Lord appeared to Prahlada before the puja and said, "I'm very happy with your worship." And then there was another problem. Prahlada began to radiate light, and so that's at the level of the asuras, but the suras are one level deeper than the asuras. The gods are deeper than these, let's call them demigods. So they're deeper than that. So the gods began to see Prahlada shining with light, and they wouldn't accept that he got enlightened. So that caused a problem for Hiranyakashipu and his father and other asuric beings. So this is a long story, of course, which you can read in the Itihasa, but basically Krishna then appeared to the gods and said, "Leave him alone. That's my son." See, he got enlightened. I gave him grace. And so Prahlada became famous in that way as somebody who transcended that station and got into a higher station, even beyond the gods. And it's really by similitude, and it means all of us really are that Atman, and we are higher than the gods. That's what the Hindu tradition proclaims. The human being, you wouldn't notice it to look at India today. You wouldn't think that they've fallen a long way from believing their own scriptures and had a lot of grief visited upon them by other countries. But basically, you'll know that that's what's in their scripture, deep in their scripture, that all the gods and goddesses are within you. So they're not something out there. They're not something back in time. They're not something forward in time, like a post-mortem emancipation. You'll see them later. They're actually your own powers. Your senses are little gods. That's why they call them indriyas. Notice the first few syllables, Indra. Indra is the Lord of gods. So they're indriyas. They have a power of light, of God, shining through them. So if you purify them, then you can get enlightenment. So that's finishing up in one half this beautiful teaching on Sapta Maha Alaya Vijnana, so that we will know without a doubt that when we look at the 6 proofs of reality, we might want to know what reality is according to the Seers, and it will moisten the potentially dry subject. So here, let's take a break, come back afterwards and take up this second proof of truth, and we'll just move forward and try and see how much we get done.